So yeah, we already mentioned and talked about this power purchase agreement mechanism. It's something that if some of you already had like a conversation with someone might be dropping PPAs, VPPAs, and we think it's really important to kind of understand like how the mechanism works, and just getting a little bit into give you a better understanding on how that works to make sure that you can kind of make informed decisions. And the best way to start is starting with understanding how the grid works. So Sara, how about we start with that? You give a little bit of an overview on how the grid works and then how the VPPA works.
Great. So the reason that we talk about tracking with VPPAs and what we really mean when we're saying that a company is, purchasing or using renewables, say, to power their operation, it's important to remember that, once an electron is in the electricity grid, it doesn't matter which source it came from. And so those environmental attributes that we were talking about before, whether you have, as in the picture shows, electricity that's generated, say, from a wind plant or a wind farm or a fossil generator, those electrons go onto the grid, but then they also generate these RECs. And so it is actually the tracking of the RECs that's what allows a company to say that they are, virtually purchasing the green power. And so what that purchase looks like, if we go on to the next slide, there's a representation of, how the VPPAs work in a deregulated market like Alberta from a practical standpoint. So as you can see, there's lots of arrows going all over the place. But on the top half, what you have there is sort of the traditional flow of electricity. Your buyer, your non-utility buyer, your corporation is purchasing electricity from their electricity utility and making a payment at some price. VPPAs are adding on that bit at the bottom where the buyer is contracting with a renewable energy project developer. They are purchasing those environmental attributes, and they're basically, that contract is for the difference, so sort of guaranteeing a price for the renewable energy project proponent. So it can look a little bit kind of confusing when you glance at it at first glance, but fundamentally, as a non-utility buyer, you're locking in, a price, and then you are responsible for the difference between that price and changes in the market price.
Yeah, thank you. And this is not an easy thing to wrap your head around. So if you need to watch this part like a few times, that's like totally okay. One of the questions that I often get when I talk with interested buyers or buyers that are new in this field, the question that I often get is like, so do people now have to cancel, or does the company now have to cancel their utility bill with their already existing utility bill?
Yeah, that's a great question and a common source of confusion. But no, I mean, you're still going to be, have a relationship with a utility provider. They are still going to be responsible for delivering electricity to you. You're sort of adding on a piece on top of that.
Mm-hmm. And the other one that is also interesting that I get is like, do we now have to pay double for my electricity because I have to contract with, the renewable electricity developer and another one with the utility with my main utility? So what would you answer there?
Yeah, so that's another common misperception, the idea that, because we're adding on this part, you're adding on another set of costs. And what ends up actually happening is that the market price is sort of netting out across all of these. And so, as a purchaser, you're paying, something related to the marketplace to your utility. But what you're paying to the renewable energy project developer is the difference between that market price and the fixed contract price that you have. And so, you can kind of see that this market price arrows are going sort of in all these directions around. And so if you imagine as the non-utility buyer, you see that you're paying out something that's the market price and you're receiving back the market price. And so what you're really on the hook for in the end is that fixed contract price, and the other two are netting out. And so that's really giving you ultimately a price certainty. So you know what you're going to be paying, modulo some questions about time of use and things like that, but you know what you're going to be paying, and is this going to be advantageous from an economic standpoint? Well, that depends what happens with the fixed contract price versus the market price as you're over the length of your contract. And so that's something that buyers will look at as they're entering into doing some modeling to understand that.
Yes, it's definitely something to wrap your head around. But we have also, if you're interested to learn more about this and you need to dig deeper, we have some cool informational materials about that, and always happy to take phone calls and walk through these graphs with you.